July 2nd. Dave, you take a roll call, please.
Ron.
Here.
Dick. Here. John.
Here.
Mike.
Here.
Dave's here. Joe.
Here.
And Jim.
Present.
Proof of notice.
As stated in the agenda.
Approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Motion by Nord,
I'll second.
second by Dave. Questions on the agenda? Nord.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. 7-0. Citizens' comments. First of all, I'm gonna allow we have student council here and FFA, so I'd like to let them give a chance since they weren't listed on the agenda. So.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Krakowski. I'm the historian for Student Council. We don't really have an update since it is the summer, but we do plan on meeting next week to start talking about some homecoming plans because we want to start planning early so we're not rushing during the school year.
Okay.
Thanks
Thanks for coming.
In June,
And you are who?
I'm sorry. I am Trinity Radcliffe. I am the FFA president this year. In June, we had a meeting on June 4th. It was a meeting just to cover the past month, which is our basic meeting. Our activity was a water balloon toss, which we held in the tennis courts. Our plant sale, we ended up with a profit of $1,802.14. Then June 11th to the 14th, we attended the state convention in Madison. Brandon Franke and myself served as the Mayville delegates, so we sat through committee meetings with the state to decide things for the state FFA and also to vote on the following state FFA officers. Other members that attended were Alex Trani, Tanner Hansen, Cora Girth, Stacia Harned, Jasmine Black, and Timothy Sternberg. Ashley Wondra received a third gold vet science SAE proficiency. The SAE is a supervised ag experience. Most, if not all, FFA students have one. And she also received her state degree, which is the highest honor a member can receive at the state level. And Alex Trani also received her state degree. Our upcoming events, we have a meeting this Sunday, July 8th at noon at the Mayville Gun Club. Our activity is our trap shoot, which is sponsored by Ann Miller and Andy Hekmovich. The fair is also coming up for us, and our steak fry, which is August 2nd, which will be held at the True Value parking lot from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or until we're sold out. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, Trinity. Any other citizen comments? First. Yes. Okay. Okay, Ron.
Okay, here we go. Well, I was already attacked by Dick. I don't know why Dick, but a little bit upsetting for me that I'm supposedly upsetting the public about this painting and I'm causing some kind of friction. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. I'm up here because I've had people come to me, in fact, today again, and tell me that they were upset with this painting. Some people had no idea about it. They talked to somebody else and it was brought up. And I guess as a representative of the public, I have to be up here and let people, the board know that this was an issue and they've been offended by it and they think it's wrong and it should have never been in the art show. So, and I tend to agree with it. So I'm a little bit offended by Dick attacking me. That kind of have no right to say anything, Dick. I guess that's what it comes down to, right? The people out there talk to me and I should keep my mouth shut. And I don't agree with our attorney telling us to be quiet, because it is not our job to be quiet. It's our job to speak for the taxpayer, for the representative, for the people of this community. What was that?
Oh, wow. Keep that up.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, okay.
Got your point.
Okay, Ron, thanks.
You really got a point across.
You know, but they need to be custom.
Okay, Joe?
You need a lot more.
A little bit of change of subject. So, regarding tips.
Regarding what, I'm sorry.
Tips.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I gave you one, here's one for you. I forgot.
I'm talking to my dad here. Give you one.
This is, you've seen most of this stuff already. If you could just throw up the PowerPoint. All right. What a TIF is, it's a tax increment financing. The intent of this is basically to promote economic development, address lack of incentives and financial resources, promote cooperation between public and private sectors, spread costs of economic development to all taxing jurisdictions that benefit, and what I think is a very important part is to contribute to property tax relief. And this came from Elders, which is pretty much in charge of our TIF number 3 as well. Next slide, please.
One too many.
So if you go on to the website for the City of Mayville, and you're going to see in the City of Mayville, you're going to see the Community Development Authority. What the Community Development Authority is they actually run the TIF itself. And so you're going to see right here, if you click on that, which is 5/23/2018, and you look at their agenda, next slide. This is what their agenda is right here. You're going to see that they've adopted and approved $180,000 to go from TIF number 3 to the CDA revolving loan fund program. The city wanted to create a type of program that businesses could get loans. What a lot of people don't know is that this actually affects your school district quite a bit. And next slide. And that's just a little bit more. So how they ended up approving this was they tried to say that there was $12,860 administrative expenses per year starting in August of 1997 and ending in August of 2011. Now, most people don't know that when you're actually administering the TIF, this was all, the costs were paid by the TIF itself. So what the city's doing in essence is going ahead and retroactively saying these costs were incurred even though they weren't incurred because the TIF paid for them themselves. And so what they were looking for was a way to get money out of the TIF. Next slide. You see that when the TIF gets split up, now what does $180,000 really do to the Mayville School District? Mayville School District gets 40% of any income of the residual funds. And the city of Mayville gets 40%, and then 10% gets, one goes to Moraine Park, the other one goes to the county. You can see when you take $180,000, it reduces your share of what's called the residual funds. Residual funds are nothing more. TIF closes out, this is what's left over of the residual funds, and then you can see how that affects you. Now the city of Mayville, by taking this before it actually closes, what it's doing, it's kind of taking the money, in essence, it's taking the money from the school district and taking out the share for the Mayville School District's residual funds, and it also affects Moraine Park, Dodge County. You can see though, the city of Mayville, they're going to get positive 108 by doing that right there. So that's how it affects them by taking it before it closes out. Next slide. So I strongly urge the Board of Education to object to this. Number one, TIF number 3, just to let you know a tiny bit of history. Hopefully Bob Smith will come up here and he can give his 2 cents in this. TIF number 3 is already produced. It should have been closed out last year. The reason why state law requires that TIFs get closed out is once your expenditures are below what you're bringing in. So this TIF should have been closed out last year. What this is doing is artificially keeping taxes high for everyone in the city, even outside the city, they're affected by this too. And it affects your constituents, whether inside the city or outside. Obviously, if you're inside the city, it's going to affect them. My estimations are right around 25% artificially high taxes when they shouldn't be that high by not doing the right thing and closing out the TIF. TIFs are supposed to be used for the projects. The scope of taking this out, not using it for the project, would be another part that I would hope the Board of Education object to. Another issue, and I still need to find out more details, is what the spending restraint requirements are, because what's going to end up happening right now, well, there's about 800 and I either heard 860 or 865 in the fund right now, which would mean our share would be now 344 and a little bit up. So it would be our share, 344,000 of those residual funds would come to the Mayville School District. So it's something to keep an eye on. Any funds taken before the TIF is closed out now, at this point, basically affect those funds from coming to the Mayville School District. It takes your share. Another issue is that I always say TIFs are causing major troubles in Wisconsin. You get a lot of people in trouble. They can come back and really hurt you. And so another reason why to get this and to ask the city of Mayville to close this out is, number one, for all of us to stay out of trouble and all the people elected to stay out of trouble, because right now it should be closed. Next slide. And I'm not going to get into this right here, but just some different reasons of why you should close it out and things like that. But any questions that you guys have of me on this?
Which one's number 3? Is that the one?
TIF number 3. Okay, so we got 3 open TIFs. You got TIF number 3, TIF number 4, and TIF number 5. TIF number 3 is your industrial park area. But we've expanded that TIF 3. The TIF's been expanded 3 different times. It includes housing. Remember, when you're expanding the TIF, the increment, so you're artificially freezing the taxes. Bonds were taken out within there. And what ends up happening is you end up you're freezing those taxes for a period of time. And the whole goal of the school board is to say, yes, we're willing to do this because we're going to reap the rewards of this, which is, in essence, you're adding valuation after the TIF closes, so everyone's taxes go down. And then at that point, if you think about it right now, just the effect of the referendum when you'd be close to being felt. Another thing is I still think that the school's finances are kind of a little bit worrisome to me. That even if you had to do another referendum, it's much easier to talk about that with citizens than it is, especially if you're doing a 25% tax cut within the city. So, any other questions?
So who's supposed to be watching them?
I'll leave that up to maybe Bob Smith.
Okay,
So, well, it's a cause of major problems. Wisconsin has, you look at cities, and I was doing some research on it, cities all across this Wisconsin are in trouble because of these. Department of Revenue gets involved. You have to declare all your expenses on this. And for instance, you can't artificially, like the city right now is trying to say, hey, we've incurred these expenses that didn't happen. Well, how are you going to create stuff that doesn't exist? Because those expenses, I even remember being on the council, we paid for those expenses. They were paid out to, and they were paid with TIF money itself. So to artificially create expenses in order to knock that down, I think is wrong. And I think we should strongly object to. But who's supposed to watch this? I don't know. So whichever taxpayer finds out about it, I guess. But Kathy Sertage was the one that ended up saying, hey, there's something going on here. And I looked at it, I almost fell on the floor. I was like, what are they doing? You can't do that. So.
Okay. Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Westfall, and folks, who do I give this to? I'll try and make this quick and simple, but TIFs are not simple. TIFs, very few people understand them, but basically what they are is the promise of something for nothing, and actually it works. We have nothing here, we want to make something. Once we have something, we can tax it and it'll pay for what it costs to make the something. That's the deal. Unfortunately, people don't like to end the money coming in. This TIF started in 1997, and the school board was, where everybody's grateful, was a partner or a stakeholder. That's the millennial terminology. You were a partner in this, and so was the Marine Park, and some of you voted for the TIF, this particular TIF. This TIF started after the TIF up on Mountain Drive, which was one of the last residential TIFs we could have. That was a 7-year TIF to build that great subdivision, paid itself off in 5 years instead of the 7 it was supposed to take. And the council and the school board said, wow, that was easy, let's do that again. So what they did is they had this farm out here on the opposite end of the industrial park. They said, let's take this nice rolling farm and make it into an industrial park, forgetting that industrial park should probably be flat. Okay, well that was 1997. The law says you can have a TIF plan for 7 to 7.5 years. You can renew it up to 2 times to make 3. Okay, this is the 3rd time. The first time it failed is because it just wasn't getting any tenants. The second time they decided, I don't know if you remember this, they were going to redo downtown and they were going to include the TIF all the way through downtown. Well, they shot that down, but what they did is they went from Quick Trip or Tom Schuessler's building all the way out to Trusses Plus, all the way around over to a new subdivision that didn't need any help at the time. That was Town and Country, to include those homes, and then come back on Mary Street down to what is now this senior citizen home. Okay, all because they felt that that would make this TIF pay off. In other words, the industrial park wasn't going to be successful necessarily, but the increment or the amount, the improvement in the property value, which is what the school board and the city captures. The taxes are frozen at 2017 levels. Whatever improvements there are, those taxes are paid by the citizens or the businesses, but they're held in the TIF account. Let me know if you're losing me here. Now, that TIF account pays expenses if they have to put a road in or do something or pay an incentive out. And the TIF account is now being enriched by the increase in property values on something that had nothing to do with the original TIF. This is the second year, the second extension, because it couldn't work on the industrial park, so now it's working with all these homes, just homes on Main Street and homes that are improving in front. Unfortunately, we had a decline in property values for a while, which took a dent in it. But now, then that failed. We found out that failed because, in fact, my wife found it. The properties in that TIF, some of you might remember, were never transferred into the TIF in Town and Country. They forgot to transfer, they left it in the farm name, so nobody captured anything. So now we into the 3rd extension, 3rd and final. By law, it can't go past December of 2019. Okay, that's the date they have it planned to schedule, but it is in a profit situation since last year. I've been arguing to close it, but once people have money to play with, comptroller treasurers, mayors, they don't like to give it up. The fact is, somebody asked the question, who's supposed to be watching this? You guys, the city should be talking to you, you should be talking to the city. I raised it during several conversations about referendums. I said there's going to be a windfall. The windfall should come in 2017 or 18. Well, now they pushed it up till 2019, the last possible day. The TIF is making a profit. It had a balance last year of $865,000. It's not supposed to have a profit. It's supposed to break even and close. Why didn't they close it? I asked that question in 2017. Well, they changed the law that said another TIF that may be in trouble, we can transfer, the new law says we can use some of the TIF 3 money to pay off a deficit in TIF 4, which is the TIF that should have never been. Some of you voted against it because it was, the guy had already bought the building, and you wanted a TIF. You know, the TIF is, but for this, it wouldn't happen. Well, he already bought it, so I don't know. It was metal crap, or meant. Anyway, so now here we are. The city should at least, and so the mayor asked, all these cities are doing things with small business programs. How can we do something? Well, our bond advisor said, well, some of them, what they're doing is they're not rating. They're using TIF money to fund, send it back to the CDA, which hadn't met before 3 years ago, and they're using that to do other development programs. Now, they're not bad. This is not a bad idea. but you never signed on for a small business revolving loan program. The school board signed on to help Mayville create homes, taxpayers, create business and employment opportunities. You didn't necessarily, now this may be very worthwhile, but nobody asked you. They just they just made a motion to take this money and fund this program. They at least should have asked you. Now, I called the mayor on it. He didn't like it, and he backed up. And I've been saying this for a month or two, but one of the citizens, another former council member who is also a chairman of finance, who keeps, these things are not that easy to understand, who was paying attention to this and saw this, called me and said, what are they doing? And I said, okay, now there's somebody noticed, so I had an obligation to make it do more. So I told the mayor, this is not gonna work. And he said, we don't have to have council approval on this. And I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, whether you have to or not, we'll fight about that later, but should you? And he said, well, okay, I'll put it on the agenda after it's already been approved. So it's on the next county council agenda for this council to approve it. But you guys, if you feel, I don't know if you signed on when you all voted 3 times for the TIF extension to have the TIF pay for a small business revolving loan program on top of, this wasn't part of the original deal. You might think that's a good idea, but you guys got your own problems. And for 2 years, I've been telling Dr. Anthony and Scott Zabel and the rest of you that you're going to get a windfall when the TIF closes, because there's going to be, I didn't think there would be money left over because there's not supposed to be. It's supposed to close out when it's even. It's already ahead 865, it'll be ahead 1.6 million when they schedule to close it out. That means you get 40% of that. But you could use the money now, and you could certainly use the taxes now. Every year they keep it open, you don't get your share of the taxes that your people are paying, but they're being captured as an increment for this TID. Now, I don't know, if you can understand, I hope you people follow that. TIDs are so complicated, but they're, some people call them a Ponzi scheme, I don't. I think a lot of good comes out of TIDs, but they are one of the most controversial things. Not the opening of TIDs, not making TIDs, but they never seem to want to close it. Because nobody's going to miss something they didn't have before, and that's the gimmick. You see what I mean? You guys are the ones supposed to say, okay, we signed on, we're partners. It's time to say goodbye to this thing. I mean, you're the ones who are supposed to be asking these questions. I'm glad Kathy Surtees brought it up. I'm glad Joel paid attention. And I'm glad I had a chance to explain, because I'm like Benedict Arnold here, you understand? But this is the school board's part of this too. And I'm speaking mainly to Jim, because Jim was one of the ones on the board who listened to the promises, and now they're welching on the deal. That's essentially what they're doing. Any questions?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Don't say welching in the paper, I got enough problems.
Okay. Any other comments? Not, we'll move on to resolution 181902, approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Motion by Norb, second by Joe. Questions on the minutes? Norb?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried 6-0-1. Any communications?
Not that, none.
Committee reports, policy, Joe.
All right, so we met on 6/21. We did go over some different things. Did you guys all get the email from Scott there?
Yeah.
And you'll see that we updated some policies. There wasn't, I know that there was one that we changed it a little bit different than what Neola had suggested, but everything else we kept what the suggestions were of Neola. And you can see that Scott sent out an email with all the different changes that there are.
It was,
policies itself.